This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
I grew up as a kid who wasn't expected to amount to much. And I grew up in this really poor family, teenage parents. And then suddenly I'm in these rooms with billionaires. It's one thing to talk about being a certain way or, hoping for something. It's quite different to say, no, I actually did it.
This episode is called Two Optimists Walk Into a Bar. And that, right? And really, I should be clear, right? Like we now know each other well enough to say it's two optimists walking into a coffee bar, right?
Exactly.
Because I've got my Java. You've got your coffee. What cup of coffee are you on? What number is this?
This is number 3, which is actually a low number for me. It's only 11. I should probably be further ahead, but here we are.
Well, maybe did you go with the bigger coffee cup today? What do you think?
No, I don't know what it was. I ran last night, so I run quite a lot. I ran 7 miles last night, and I didn't run this morning, and I think that's what the issue was. I didn't wake up early enough to start the coffee drip going. Well, I just need an IV that's rolling with me all day, and then I would be good.
I thought I was going to play. I get to play the role of cup of coffee for you, and I love this. I love that we're going to have a nice little
coffee chat, a little coffee talk,
little coffee talk. And what I love about Jen is that the universe sometimes connects people that should know each other that don't know each other. So
totally.
You've had a whole career in comms. I had my whole career in whatever comms and now courage, right? But
I love that comms and courage. Yeah.
Sometimes you run into somebody's commentary on LinkedIn, which is how I ran into your world. And I was like, oh, I really like the way this person thinks. Who is this person, right? And they're like, oh, now I'm going to start stalking. And then you're like, I'm like, now I want to reach out to this person. And it didn't take long though before you responded. And I was like, I really like the way you think. And I've got this podcast and then I'm sure you're like, who's this person? And then you probably
no way. Me and Ryan, we're besties now. We're long friends. Yeah,
we're tight.
Exactly.
Let's kind of start on the you're a runner, because if you actually look at not the way you think, like you think about the way you've run from, you're basically sprinting to some pretty impressive brands. Like if you think about the work you've done, can you kind of share how you got started in this, how you knew this was for you? And maybe a little bit of the sprint from brand to brand.
Yeah, totally. So I like to think of myself as a little bit of a chaos pilot. I mean, my coffee cup here, you can read it. It says chaos coordinator. Standing still has never been my thing. It's never been an option for me. I'm all about getting into the gray area. I tell my team a lot, get into the gray, feel comfortable in the gray. Let's take some complexity and make it clear and more simple. And so right now I'm the SVP of Communications at the Aspen Group. If you don't know what the Aspen Group is, it's a multi-billion-dollar healthcare portfolio company. We're really focused on expanding access to high quality care across the US. And so my role is really to guide strategic communications that inspire patients to get the care they deserve, but also doctors and dentists and providers to join our mission. But I actually started my journey similar to you, bestie, in consultancies, like strategic communications, consultancies. I was working with big brands, Hilton and eBay and Nestle Waters. And I was working with John Donahoe, who was the eBay CEO at the time. He just left Nike. Craft his executive positioning around sustainable consumption and sustainability. But what's sort of interesting is, in this time frame, I was doing a lot of US based consulting work, but I had this growing fascination with how brands adapted their mission and vision across different countries. And one of the agency's clients at the time was P&G. And they were doing really cool, intellectually interesting work in places like South Africa and in India. But I wasn't getting those opportunities. I was just like, you focus on Alpo here in the US, which was a great brand and I loved it, but I really wanted to build my skills and sort of a global muscle. And I just wasn't getting them. So instead of waiting for this chance that might never come, I just sort of created my own. And I think you and I are probably very similar in this way. So I did some digging at the time and I found this organization that needed volunteers to teach women in developing countries how to use computers. And so I set up an appointment to get my very first passport. I had never left the country before. I booked my first international flight to Kenya, not knowing what to expect.
Wow.
And that experience changed me in ways I could not have imagined. And so from there, every few months I would go on to India and a few other countries doing similar volunteer work during my time off. And those trips taught me that I can handle things that, people might call it risky or impractical or silly or whatever, but like more importantly, it gave me something tangible, a story that I could tell myself that said, I did this. And it wasn't just talk, it wasn't hope, it was proof that I could take a leap and make it happen. Action always overrides any feeling of inadequacy every single time. And that was the foundation for what drove me then to get my MBA in international management. And, having worked for a number of founders, throughout my career over the last, 25 years, which is really aging myself here. But like that confidence, I think, has been a cornerstone for every kind of bold step.
I want to get into, we're going to talk about like the front row seat to founders here in a minute, but I don't want to bury that. I don't want to bury that line. Like you said, action.
I mean, I fundamentally believe that action overrides any feeling of inadequacy.
Yeah.
Every single time, full stop. It's what I believe at my core.
So I love that. I mean, the listener is very aware of the definition that we use at Courageous for courage, which is knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And if you take one of the levers away, it's something else, right? So knowledge and faith without action's paralysis. Faith and action without knowledge is reckless. And knowledge and action without faith, if you're numb on the inside, you're working on safe. You're working on status quo. So you got to have all three. I want to just clarify one thing. And I think I know the answer to this, but let me ask you a question before I clarify. When you are like, I'm out of here, let me go get my passport, the adventure, the Gen adventure begins. Was this like right after school? Like where were you? Like how long ago was this?
Oh God, 20 years ago. I was probably 25, 24, okay. 25, but I was still working. So I didn't just like up and leave my job. I took sabbatical. I either took a sabbatical or this was part of my paid time off. And instead of going on vacation, I went to India, I went to Ghana, I went to Kenya and was just immersing because I wanted to get global experience, but I didn't know how. Like I wasn't getting this, I wasn't getting these offers, right? To like go do some work in Bangladesh or China or whatever. I had to make it happen for myself. And I think a lot of people think, your career is not like the weather. It doesn't have to happen to you, right? Like you can be an active participant in making those things happen.
Yeah. See, that's where I was going. You're way ahead of me, way ahead of me. Like I think I had an idea of what life was supposed to be like. And I was living that life and I was still doing just fine. But like, it's like, I went to high school and then I went to college and then I like,
totally.
what job? I'm going to move to New York City. And and then, I got into an agency and now I think when you're in it, you can't see it now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of was like a 5th year senior at my first company. Like nobody told me I could leave. And so I was like, was I even driving the car of my own life or was I just sort of in the passenger seat?
Oh, that's such a good point.
Right. And I think until they let me go. And that's when my life started to be like, that was my first, excuse my French, but like my first oh shit moment on.
Totally.
Right. Like, wait a minute. I'm not going to just be at this one company my whole life. Or like, I didn't even thought it through. And now, I call that my negative blessing. If it wasn't for that moment, I don't move to California. I don't start thinking about, well, wait a minute, I can actually create my own stuff. And even in the early years, it was still fear and stubbornness that got me through it. I mean, you had the conscious, proactive way of saying, I'm going to go,
Delusion.
hey,
Optimistic delusion.
right. Manifest the delusion. And here you are. But I think what people don't get also is now like those little notches, those little curious moments that it still serves you because you're like, wow, I glitched what I thought my life was going to be.
Totally. I used to think optimism was for like Pollyannas. I grew up a poor kid to two parents who had me when they were teenagers. Like my mom worked at Dunkin' Donuts overnight. My dad was a mechanic. There were times actually when I was like 3, 4, 5 years old when I had to wear my snowsuit to bed because we couldn't afford heat in our apartment. And so I saw my parents constantly worry about money and wondering if they could pay our rent or my bills. And I definitely remember feeling like shit, the world is against me. Like this isn't fair. And I even like you and I, we started out our career in consulting, which is all about pointing out problems. But as I've gotten older and as I've taken more of my own actions and I've actually seen cause and effect and I've just experienced more, situations, I've realized that pointing out problems is easy. It's lazy, actually. And optimism isn't about ignoring problems. It's not about pretending everything is great. It's about acknowledging that despite the setbacks or despite the tough moments, there's always a path forward. It's a muscle you build. And your point actually earlier was so beautifully said. We actually and actively shape our future with the choices we make today, right now. Just as this conversation today was shaped by choices we made weeks ago. So
Totally.
when you choose optimism, I firmly believe you're choosing to be an active part of the solution. And that's really powerful.
But it's also cool to see that, I mean, how you grew up was very different than how I grew up. I mean, I grew up in a 3-car garage. I was a snotty kid.
Oh, you fancy.
All right. Look, well, yes and no. Like, yes, yeah. Like
It's all relative. Yeah.
no, it's all good. Like I got to see what the ceiling was like early, but I was the younger of 2 siblings. And I think all of the energy on pressure went to my brother. Like he was the smart one.
Interesting. Yes.
Right. And like, did I really pick this job or did this, like, I'm an observationalist, right? I'm 3.5 years younger than my brother. I watched him get in trouble by going out of that window. I'm like, don't go out of that window. Right? Like,
choose the one to the left.
Right. Oh, don't leave the door open. That was stupid. The alarm's on, right? Like things like this. So like growing up, my sort of aha or my fear was like, yeah, I came from success, but I was taught you're supposed to do better than the last generation. It was an unspoken rule, but yet my brother was the brilliant one, and I was the good with people one. So I'm like, how the hell am I gonna even get remotely close to this? But I'm like, I'm just have to outwork people. So I would say it was an unconscious decade of my life where I was like, I'm not that smart. I'm going to have to outwork you. I didn't have it wasn't optimism then. It was only when I like looked back.
Grit. It was grit.
And the work ethic that was created from that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe, for like allowing me to create that muscle. And I don't know if you feel this way. Like there are certain times still in my career. And by the way, in my brain, like I haven't done anything yet. Like it's just, you just stay even. I know we feel differently about this. The optimist in you wants to tell me differently, right? I know you.
I know. I'm like,
yeah, but I'm here to tell you, like, now I look back at it all and I go, I could tell someone exactly what I'm going to do. I could give them the playbook, and I don't think they have. Will they really roll up their sleeves and put in?
Yeah, I agree.
Put in the work and do the work. Like you said, we can almost all of us can kind of. At least everyone who's listening to this podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, it's probably pretty easy now for you to get a passport. Probably, right?
Yeah. Great point.
Right. You could go to Kenya tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
You go to Kenya in 2025.
Yeah.
And go see different. But yet you did it. You took the action on that. And like, that's the difference. And yet you come back different than the person that was getting on the plane that went there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for better or worse, I've always had this little like voice in my head that says like, you can figure it out. I mean, I was first person in my family to go to college, first to get a master's degree. It's what drives me to, I moved across the world to China for business school, packed up to California. Maybe it's a bit overconfident of my own abilities, but you can't see that as a flaw. It's not blind faith. It's confidence built from doing the hard things. Again, action over, it's the best antidote, because the more you do, the stronger that voice gets. But you have to actually be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work in order to get that feedback back.
All right, here's in the spirit of the Courageous podcast, and when there's always this relationship between fear and courage, they're kin. So here's a terrifying, here's a terrifying question for you. As an ultra runner, and you've done a lot of things, what are you running from?
Ooh, feelings of inadequacy. Full stop. That's an easy one. That's easy.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That's it. Okay.
I mean, again, I grew up as a kid who wasn't expected to amount to much. So being in, I grew up in this really poor, poor family, teenage parents. And then suddenly I'm in these rooms with billionaires. And I'm like, I don't belong here, or I'm in a room with like these genius and, fellow MBA students. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why did they let me in? So I think part of the reason why I take so many actions and I do a lot of shit is to prove to myself that I can credentialize these things. Like, it's one thing to talk about being a certain way or, hoping for something. It's quite different to say, no, I actually did it, So for me, I think I'm always running. It's a good question. I think I'm always running from that feeling of inadequacy.
Mine, I think, is a constant battle with like, is this like, am I actually helping people? Like, is this like, are we relevant or are we just talking to ourselves here? Like, are we really like, I'm always toggling between those universes for me. We talked about the founders and like this front row seat to founders, and you've been in some pretty special companies. You've done Headspace, you've been at Shutterfly, Unilever. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like to be. I mean, I've never been you, so I could be off on this. And to my knowledge, I've never been you.
To your knowledge, I like the
right.
Yeah.
Maybe there were simulation,
Maybe.
But I don't think I've ever been you. So one of the things I love about you is that you've had a front row seat to founders in all directions. I mean, it's Shutterfly, it's Unilever, it's Headspace, and I mean, I kind of feel like you're a consigliere to them. Is that not how
super
you see
accurate?
it?
Totally accurate. I've worked almost exclusively for founders throughout my entire career. So wonderful company, Unilever, helping founding CEOs post acquisition think about their legacy, Headspace, and now the Aspen Group. I think it's an honor and a privilege to be able to help a founder tell their story. I don't know, you're a founder, so you can tell me if this is accurate, but to me, starting a business, because I'm not an entrepreneur, but starting a business to me, it's got to be a little bit like jumping out of a plane, except you have no idea what's below you or if your parachute is going to work. Like, does that feel accurate?
Facts. But the last thing you do is look down, nor do you look up. You just sort of stay in the air. And I mean, again, I don't know if it was if you were really asking me, and I'm not pretending to be a founder of Shutterfly or Headspace or Wonderful, but I can tell you that anytime I've had fear, I have such clarity in the mission of what I'm trying to build.
Yes.
And we're nowhere near, like, I think, okay, this is in the spirit of two optimists, right? So I know, and by the way, it's almost sad that it took me 7 years to land on a platform of positivity and possibility.
Why is it sad that it took you that long? Why do you think that's sad?
Well, maybe if I would have gone to Kenya, I would have gotten there in year 2 on the line itself. But I have this weekly dose of courage, and last month, November, one of the things I wrote was turn November into Yes-Vember, right? And like say yes. And I'm not saying you have to change your whole life, but pick a spot to say yes. And in some ways, when you're a founder and you're you're not a funded, you're like a duct tape founder, which is what I've always been, then you have to say yes. You have to say yes more than you'd like, at least early, before you have enough revenue or runway to know where to say no. right? You need the belief, you need to grow the snowball. So now looking back, I'm like, all right, my purpose by far is so clear, it outweighs the fear. And
Yes.
it makes it easier for me to jump out of the plane. And it's like, here we go. Let's see. But is that what you're seeing from your side as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, it's a huge responsibility to be able to take somebody's vision, like you just articulated, and tell that story in a way that's going to drive value, but also stays true to that North Star. I have found, have you ever read The Founder's Mentality, the book?
Tell me more.
Great. I mean, the premise is that every founder, basically has three main traits. There's this insurgence mission, which is the first one. It's like almost like you're at war against the industry on behalf of a frustrated customer. There's like this sense of grit and frustration. There's the owner's mindset, which if you've ever heard recently, Brian Chesky's been talking a lot about founder mode. Like he's in the weeds, he's in the details. And then the third piece is obsession with the front line, or those who are basically directly talking to customers every day. And I am of the mind that young companies either need to build the founder's mentality, but older companies probably need to rediscover or even redefine it. And so that's really what I've built my career doing. I started talking a little bit earlier about my dad. My dad, he was the first founder and entrepreneur I ever worked for, work in the front desk of Cycletech Motorsports, his motorcycle shop. You can imagine these like tough biker guys coming in to discover me. It's like teenage girl with braces greeting them at the counter. They'd immediately demand to see my dad. And, I had to sort of project confidence and learn how to, sell them that tire or help them figure out if they needed to change their spark plugs. And I had to learn to not, just listen to what they were saying, but also to what they really meant. So if somebody came in upset, I'd figure out if they, did they really just want a quicker turnaround, or did they just want some reassurance that their bike was in good hands? And one incident that stands out vividly to me, my dad had given an interview to a local newspaper, and he had mentioned offhand that he wasn't like those Hell's Angels, which he wasn't. The guy, loves elevator music and like smooth jazz. And I don't think he's raised it ever in my entire 42 plus years on this planet. But naturally the newspaper splashed, that line as the headline in, the Sun Chronicle newspaper. And it led to, he actually ended up getting death threats from a local biker gang. And it was in this moment that I became, I think, really fiercely protective of my dad, of course, but it sort of planted this seed in me. Like one word, one misstep can ignite a storm. And that experience really shaped, I think, my instinct to guard and guide and communicate on behalf of those who have taken that entrepreneurial leap out of the plane, so to speak. And so I think it's an honor, it's a privilege to be able to help a founder tell their story. But I've also seen time and again that companies led by their founders, that like insurgency mindset, that frontline obsession, they have these are intangible assets in some ways that are really difficult for professionally managed companies to replicate. And so it's really what I've spent my entire career doing, really helping, not just, helping communicate things, but really helping be an advisor to the founder, to the C-suite, to their leadership team.
So if like a watchdog and an owl had a baby, that's you. You got the wisdom of the owl, but also like it's sort of sad that look, the optimist in me is like, that's sort of a bummer though, that you have to play the watch out game. Like, well, okay, maybe let's not say it like this. Let's say it like that, right? Like, do you feel like you're first when someone is sharing an idea with you?
Yeah.
Can you just not help yourself? Where you're like, all right, how's this going to get received by the public?
Oh, of course, that's my job. That's my job. I mean, I think sometimes, particularly with founders, it can be hard because a lot of times they have strong personalities. There's clear vision for their company, as you just said. It can create unintentional pressure for people to just agree or just say yes to things. And I actually think my number one job is to protect that person, that brand, that organization. And sometimes that means having to say the hard thing that other people are not willing or able or have the courage to do, especially if that changes or challenges somebody's deeply held belief. But it can create blind spots, and it can make it really hard for that organization or that company to grow and evolve. So absolutely, I don't see it as a bad thing. Actually, I think it's really about how can we make sure that this amazing idea that you have, or this vision, or this new launch, or whatever it is going to be positioned in a way that gets the right people to take action at the right time, right? It's not about spin. It's about making sure that you are being really clear about what it is, what problem you're going to solve. And sometimes if you don't make it through the noise, it's gonna die on the vine. So I think it's my responsibility to always be the naysayer and the fun police, if you will.
All right. So let's say someone they're nodding their head right now. They're on their ultra run or wherever they are listening to this, and they're going, what Jen does sounds pretty cool. Like, how do I get closer to this type of work? What advice would you give them?
So I would say a couple of things. I mean, number one is just get interested in how leaders communicate. I'm a nerd for this, so it maybe I'm taking it a step too far, but I love to dive into like leaders' earnings scripts and read how they're positioning the company for investors, because you get so many interesting glimmers of what's on the horizon, what they're thinking about, what kind of foreshadowing they're doing in those scripts. So I think curiosity is probably step number one. If you're thinking about, you want to build your own organization's presence, or you want to build your own personal brand, start to think about what is it that you uniquely offer to the world around you. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I think we live in this world where our relationship with information is often in numbers, right? It's like follower counts, likes, views, whatever. But more information is not necessarily leading to more understanding. And so I think for somebody who's interested in communicating their unique position in the world, or talking a little bit about their organization's mission or what they stand for, I actually think storytelling plays a really critical role in helping your audience make sense of the information you're trying to sell. So I would say curiosity is probably number one, and just meeting as many people as you can. I'm always down to meet new people, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, but make sure you're open to experiences and perspectives that challenge your usual way of thinking. That's what fuels real growth. So don't be afraid to ask questions, or, head to a conference, or, call up your comms leader at your company or organization and see if there's something you can assist with or you can help with.
I mean, I love the feedback on stay curious and, be interested, like actually be interested.
Yeah.
I would also say right after that, what do you need to do to be interesting? It's also important, which I think is different than interested. And it's almost like what you said about, it's not about spin. It's not like, don't do fake interesting, like figure out actually the stuff that you're interested in, double down on and take action on it. So like you said, good for you was the first passport trips, and like, wow, that makes you really interesting to a founder, because and by the way, the amount of resumes I've seen where someone is like, it's like, oh, it's so perfect. It's such a perfect like, look how perfect my resume is. And I've got all the things on there. And it's like, yeah. And then it's in with 70 other resumes, and it looks so perfectly looks exactly like everything else. It just
overrated. I also think perfect is overrated. It's an illusion.
Yeah. So like, what do you need to do to stand out? Like what makes you interesting? What's the zag when everyone else is going to zig, and continue to look for those zag moments in life. If you were going to talk to yourself in a decade from now, let's say you took over my show and I we actually called in Jen George from the future. So it's 12 years. So we'll say it's 12 years from now.
Okay.
What's the first question you ask her? We'll start there. What's the first question you ask her?
Let's see. This is a good question. Maybe you know what I think it would be is, are you proud of the way you spent your time? It's like, I think what matters most, how you've lived, what you've prioritized. And it's a question of whether or not you've been true to yourself. Like, I think it kind of goes back to what we initially started talking about, right? Which is like, yeah, you can check boxes on a list, which is fine. But has that list actually matched your values and the things that you care about? Time is the one thing we can't get back. So knowing that I used those 12 years in ways that hopefully brought meaning or growth or happiness is probably what I'd want to ask first. What would you ask yourself?
Are you fulfilled?
Mm.
I think I've learned from the show. Like, I think I over-index on happiness sometimes, and I think happiness can be fleeting, but fulfillment is sort of a sustained idea. And so, when I look back, I mean, I've never been a fan of the word potential, because it's like I didn't read my potential. It's like,
and it also feels like it's like slipping out of your finger. Like, oops.
Yeah, it's like you're so close. Wow, Ryan had so much potential. It's like. So I would say I would ask, like, do you tell me, are you fulfilled with all the things, not just the work stuff, but like the family life and the kids, and do they still want to like hang out with you and talk to you? And you never know what's going to happen in 12 years. So I think that's probably where I'd go. I mean, on the business side, for sure, like I have terrifying, audacious goals for what I want of Courageous, and it's like I've met so many cool people that should know each other. Maybe this is the next right question, and I probably would not have gotten there if it wasn't for you, volleying the ball back to me on this one. But like, I think it's very, very lonely to be the leader, and like the higher up you get, the more lonely you feel. So on my side, I want to start vetting and connecting people that should know each other, and who, because I think everyone should know each other. You want to, but I do. I think the higher up you get, and you're seeing this firsthand with a lot of the founders, like how are you helping a lonely leader feel less lonely?
I also think there's a weight of particularly with a founder, but any leader, right? There's like a weight of that position that feels like you almost have to be on your own. So often I've heard this time and again from folks like, well, I started it on my own and I got, this guy bamboozled me and I thought I could trust this person and they actually took advantage of me. And so they end up creating this really tight, either a really tight circle or a circle of yes people, or they always keep folks at a distance. And that is an incredibly lonely place, but you're also not learning and growing as much as you could be had you opened that circle a little bit. So I love the idea of hosting like a community. I think that's a really good idea.
Well, that's good. Box checked. I'm taking notes over here.
You can add it to your perfect resume.
All right, there we go. Finally, yes, perfect. Has there been a time when I think it's tricky, right? Like, do you find, because you're kind of part of you're always interviewing for an inner circle job.
Yeah. Of course.
Like, by the way, one of the biggest surprises that I had, I mean, first of all, nobody, if you took the pie chart of revenue that we make it Courageous and asked me early, like, did I think keynotes was like I never thought that would,
right.
It wasn't like when I grew up, I want to be a keynote speaker. Like that was not on the top 100 list. But the amount of times now that I'll first be introduced to a founder through you, like head of internal comms or chief communications officer, because they're like asked to write on behalf of the founder, the CEO, or the president. Like that, the CEO is relying on you to be like, I kind of want to say it like this. And you're like, no, you want to say it like this, right?
Yes.
And so I'm now being brought in more through you than anybody else, which I find fascinating. I mean, you are one degree away on the Kevin Bacon game, is what it feels like. Right? So do you also feel like, does some of that loneliness land on you as well?
For sure. I mean, I think particularly in times of transformation or change, for example, communications folks very often know about things well in advance because they're helping advise on the best way to position something or the best way to roll something out. And sometimes that can be really difficult announcements, right? Like an acquisition or a divestiture or layoffs, or a leader is stepping down. And so this information, but you can't talk about it. I mean, I consider myself a vault because just how many things that you have to sort of, keep in your mind and make sure that it's separate from the decisions you're making day to day. But it is, it's the perfect recipe for loneliness. But I also think there is, what I would say has been really helpful in those instances is having a network of people who have gone through a similar challenge or are in a similar position at other companies. And so you can really have open, honest conversations that aren't about the specifics necessarily, but are about, hey, what advice would you give to somebody who, is going through X, Y, and Z? Or, is there an opportunity? Do you have any resources or insights for, a toolkit for managing transformation? Or have you ever gone through a divestiture? And so you don't just share specifics, but I think having a community where you can keep it real and that isn't just a space for super polished, professional facades. Like, you have to be able to feel like you could be open and vulnerable without judgment. And that goes for everybody, not just, C-suite leaders. But I think if you can create a space that is full of, sparked discussions and a good community dynamic, whether that's, built on its own organically, or you've kind of come to a couple of, I don't know if you follow Lindsay Slaby, she runs Sunday Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And she has like her Sunday, she actually like hosts dinners. And I think that kind of model is beautiful because it turns a really, what could be lonely position for, in her case, CMOs, but one of like shared growth and support, which I think is particularly in today's world is just harder to come by.
I'm inviting myself to the next one that's in Northern California. So just remember to like add me to the mix and
for dinner anytime.
Coming in. All right. I want to kind of end with sharing something that you wrote, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I don't mind.
And I think it's important that there are times where, I'm going to add a third animal into the mix here. I said you're a watchdog, you're an owl, but there's also chameleon-like tendencies that come with it, right? Because you have to sort of write in the tone of the person that you're representing. But I want, look, if someone has made it 40 minutes and they're clearly invested and engaged in you and this conversation. And I think what I've seen, first of all, I think because we're both optimists, that's check the box in the right direction. Yes, we both love coffee, but above all, it wasn't you writing on behalf of somebody else that attracted me to your style. Yeah. It was your point of view. And so I'm going to share this and then we'll go from there. Most people speak at 150 words per minute. Some go a mile a minute, but comprehension plummets when we speak too fast. If you want your words to matter, stop filling the space. Slow down. Choose your words with precision. Let them breathe. The space between the words, that's where people understand, where they feel, where they remember. Communication isn't just talking at someone. It's knowing when to pause and when to give your message the power it deserves. This is me pausing so people get what we're talking about.
I love what a good student you are.
Hey, thank you. I'm giving a little bow, a little homage to you. But this, I think I just had posted something on so you want to be a keynote speaker. And I think where we're also aligned is stepping in, I call it body jumping, and jumping into the shoes of the person you're trying to land with. And yes, using space to let the words do what they need to do so we can, this is important. That's why this person is pausing, to make sure people get what we're talking about here. So I wanted you to know that it's very cool to meet somebody that, you can be a chameleon, but also more than that, I appreciate your brand and the way that you're making us better. and that you have taken it upon you're not getting paid per minute here to like write to my knowledge. I don't know if you are, let me know and I'm in, but like,
I wish.
you're doing it because you're helping other people think this stuff through, and it only makes us all better and improves all of us. So like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the time to do that. This isn't Tag that's writing. It's not that it's not good for the company. It's Jen that's writing, and it was very noticeable to me.
Well, that's really great to hear. I mean, I think too often we think that there's no point in having some amazing vision or some amazing strategy that people are not inspired to help deliver against. Good communication is about empathy. It's about simplicity. It's about stories, compelling visions. It's about relationships. And you have to be a fanatic about understanding what your audience actually wants if you're going to communicate well. A lot of times what I tell leaders, and in fact, I was just talking to somebody recently, in earnings calls with my old CEO, she would talk so fast because she just wanted to get the information out. And I would literally write slow on a piece of paper, just hold up, slow down. Because I think we think of communication as being functional or head, but really it is head and heart. And you have to be, you articulated it so perfectly. There is a bit of showmanship that has to come with it. And, how do you capture hearts and minds when life is moving at the speed of light? I think, your business, your brand is built up brick by brick, conversation by conversation. Everything you say and everything you do is communications. So your job as a keynote speaker or a founder or a speaker is to make sure that you're sending the right message and that everybody is receiving it, and that those messages are driving, and inspiring trust in you as a brand or business.
And I don't mean to plus one this, but my big takeaway also from that is like, have the courage to write slow on a piece of paper and share that with somebody that's, I'm air quoting, a superior, a founder, or someone you work for. Like, it's actually, as hard as that might be in the moment, you're truly building psychological safety between you and that person. And it's like, you're trying to help them. And if they don't see it that way, maybe you're in the wrong place. Right. But like, that to me was so cool to hear. I had to do that, slow it down. The intentions were pure.
Yes, exactly. And let me be very clear too. Like, you have not communicated well if people have not heard you. You may have stood up and talked at them, but communications you've actually only communicated if your words have had an impact. I think we forget that.
Well, Jen George, keep putting your words into the world. Keep putting your founders' words into the world. Keep putting your words into the world. And I look forward to 12-year from now, Jen George, and hearing how many cups of coffee she's still drinking.
I know. I wonder how many. That should have been my question.
She's going to,
coffee did you have today?
as you hear like the slurp on the other side as she's, and then also, I'm curious to hear when you're going to launch your communication school, right? Because there's something there. Maybe that's the 12-year from now, Jen George.
You know what? I think it is we are so focused on like data and numbers, but I feel like there's so much noise, not enough signal. I think storytelling and communications is going to be a real game changer in a data-driven world. Like, we've always told stories to make sense of the world around us, but we're drowning in data without understanding what it all means. So I actually think communications is a skill that is in dire need of a refresh. So you never know, maybe 12 years from now.
This sounds like a great place to cliffhanger. Jen, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you at one of those dinners, and we can cheers over coffee.
All right, deal. Maybe it's a breakfast if it's coffee.
Maybe it's a breakfast.
I'm in. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.